Hello everyone, it's Wednesday on Your View. Welcome to the show. I am Morayo Afolabi Brown. As always, I have the ladies with me. Hello, Tokwe Makodziga. How are you doing today?
I'm very good. Grateful to God. Wearing sleeveless makes me see all my tiny glass shards on my body. I used to feel like I have flawless skin, but now we have small things there. But towards the end of the year, there are two things the conflict that flows through my mind. The conflict of, let us review your goals. You said you were going to do this. You said you were going to do that. The second side of the conflict is, like, be grateful to God you're alive. Calm down, there will be another time. Many people had all these great plans, and they actually achieved it, but they are not here to share the story of all their achievements. In finding that balance, I'm conflicted in my marketing, because it pays me to market that fulfill your goals, buy this land before the end of the year. But it's the same me that will say, calm down and plan ahead for next year. This is, I'm Raya, you are your guy in this. You understand communication. Why are you founding? Yes, you understand communication. So maybe you can guide me. You can guide me on how to, so that I won't see like I'm talking from the two corners of my mouth.
The Holy Spirit will guide you.
Both are true, and both can exist at the same time. For those who need the message of you need to set your goals and do it, and then for those who need to hear calm down, will get it. So you're doing well.
I can just push the two messages. They won't say that I'm confused.
No, you're not.
How are you doing?
I'm doing amazing.
Nobody knows she's not confused.
She knows, she's looking for banter. We have discussed, we don't have banter today.
Trust BC to just open everything.
No. How are you doing, BC?
I'm doing amazing. I'm just taking it one day at a time. One of the things that I'm helping people understand now is to focus on the now. The now is all we have. Sure. The future we think we are getting to, there's nothing like the future. When we get there, it's still the now. We are just projecting. We're just imagining and, thinking that it will be better. If you cannot enjoy where you are right now, when you get there, you will not be able to enjoy it. That's basically the message I've been passing. I'm trying to help my people go beyond the mind, go beyond the intellect.
One of the things I'd like to see at the end of this year is like a collage of all the faces of BC since January, which has beautiful hairstyles. I'd like to have like a nice video.
So honestly, BC,
detailed, the long hair, the bone straight, the curly, the short,
the red, the orange.
It would be just a nice collage to see, because you've been very versatile
all those
this
artist
year.
people, give me a collage.
How you doing, Mariam?
Oh my God, I'm tired.
Why?
I need to sleep. My goal for this year, is to have sleep. Please, I need sleep. I need to be able to sleep one night full, and then the next night, let me just have 2 days of good night's sleep. I just don't get it. Every little change affects my sleep pattern. If you change just different things, I just need to sleep. That's all. Right now,
you need vacation.
I'm just on.
I think you need a vacation.
Energy or some sort,
This energy again, you came back to this energy again.
It's not, what do they call it when you use, it's bravado. I'm not really feeling myself today.
Yeah, a bit low on the energy thing.
Let us send the message to Mr. Longa to arrange a quick visit, just take you out for like a week. You need it. Okay, so massaging, other room, everything together.
You'll be fine.
You will come back, you will be knocked out. The vibrancy that we'll see.
I don't blame, I brought this on myself.
That's why you keep quiet.
How you doing?
I'm also at that end of the year crossroads, because I'm thinking of walking away from something that that is profitable, but I think I need to just find another path. We are all at that level. It's time for you to just make some decisions. So I'm also in that road. At the end of the year, what do I do? Do I hand over, or do I continue?
Clarity.
We'll see. We just ask for clarity. I think there's RDJ that says ask for clarity of thought.
Clarity of thought.
So I think I just need that clarity at this time. But it's good. It's Wednesday, midweek. Lots of things happening. Everybody's talked about the JPI. Your View hasn't spoken about it yet, and that's our conversation today. But first, we go through the front pages of the papers. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.
Okay, let's start with the Punch today. FG lists loopholes. UN, US, others demand sanctions as the hashtag EndSARS report. 5 dead, 15 vehicles destroyed as phone call triggers the Lagos gas explosion. Suspected herdsmen kidnap, kill Ondo butchers, tricked to buy cows. 300 monarchs backing Tinubu for 2023 presidency, says campaign coordinator. NAF conducted 3,700 counter-insurgency missions in 2021, says Air Chief. We appealed case of Nigerian girl wrongly jailed in Cote d'Ivoire, says federal government. FG plans $100 billion Nigerian-Brazil initiative on economies and fuel security. FG blames theft, insecurity others as oil production plunges. Okay.
Yesterday, there was a gas explosion on Ojekunle Street off Ladipo Street in Mushin area. They said that this happened about 7:30 a.m. The puff-puff lady was frying her puff-puff, and just beside her was the man that sells cylinder. He was selling to a customer, and the customer got a phone call. The moment the customer picked it, there was an explosion. Whoa. The woman frying puff-puff died. Oh, God. The man selling the cylinder, his customer, and 2 other people. It was also an area where there are lots of mechanics, panel beaters, so the cylinder man also gives that cylinder sells it to, you know, the panel beater. So they said many vehicles were affected, about 15 vehicles. They talked to a few mechanics there. Some were saying that some of their customers' cars were affected in the explosion. So this is really sad. But, you know, on that note also, we need to look at how we can better arrange and manage marketplaces so that places where there are cylinders and explosives like that will be safer, you know, to do business around there. So we can either put them in a different place, put the and then ask people that come to those areas not to pick calls, just like they do at the fuel stations. You know, you already have a sign that says you cannot take calls or make calls there. And also, it was worrying to know that the person who is frying puff-puff is just beside the person who is selling cylinders. We need to
those two don't
that.
mix.
Yes.
Yeah. So 2 butchers have been killed by gunmen suspected to be Fulani headsmen in the agrarian community of Ajadusi Ala. That's in Akure, North Local Government area of Ondo State. They said the bandits stormed into the town on Monday, started shooting sporadically into the air before kidnapping the victim. So one of the victims who was able to escape was narrating the story, and he said that they called and asked that the victims come and buy cows. So these are people they've been transacting businesses with. He said himself and his boss and 2 other members of the business. Now, the boss kept feeling like, we don't need this cow right now. We shouldn't buy this cow. But then they kept on calling that the cows are ready, come and pick it up. And so they traveled to the place where they were supposed to buy the cows. They came down from the vehicle and said they should move towards the bush where they can just easily get in the cows into the truck. So they the bandits went into the bush, the businessmen, so to speak, went into the bush and came back with guns, started shooting. The person who was narrating this barely escaped with machete all over his body. He said they macheted him, and he just lay down on the floor like pretending to be dead. And then they killed 2 of them. 1 is still being held with them. So the police is saying that they initially felt it was a case of armed robbery, but when they started investigating, they realized it's a case of banditry, and these are people who have been doing businesses with, so they know their faces and everything. Investigations are ongoing. They are still looking for the person who has been kidnapped, and hopefully they'll find him. Okay, let's take the economy.
So the Vice President, represented by the Secretary General of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, speaking, declaring open the Nigerian Diaspora Investment Summit 2021, which was done in partnership with the Nigerian in Diaspora, the NIDCOM, the commission, the Nigerian Diaspora Commission, was speaking about a plan which will empower our agricultural sector, deploying technology from Brazil. So Brazil is one of the countries that has moved actively from 3rd to a developed country and exports large amount of food using their own homegrown mechanized farming system. So now this partnership with Brazil would involve about $100 billion, but would help us set up 780 agricultural service centers across the country, and this would be a catalyst. So both technology and training across 780 locations within Nigeria, funded with about over $100 billion, using agricultural technology from Brazil. I think it will go a long way in improving our food security and providing employment. But I cannot wait for us to start implementation, because most time we hear these things when we're launching one thing or the other, but we need to, but it sounds good.
Yeah. Except for we, the people, circumvent the process.
Yeah.
As we usually do. Okay, moving on to the nation. UN, US SANS to government. Act on Lagos #EndSARS report. 5 died, 12 injured in Lagos explosion. 6 jailed, 141 years for drug trafficking. Governors insist on litigation to end Paris Club refund. Why ASU can't go on strike by Inhibehe. IMF, E-Naira will cut costs of diaspora remittances. Okay, which story are we taking?
Okay, let me take the IMF, E-Naira will cut costs. So the International Monetary Fund says that the introduction of our E-Naira by CBN would will reduce the cost of annual diaspora remittances to Nigeria. They're saying that they have identified Nigeria as one of the major remittances destinations in sub-Saharan Africa. So we know that remittances are typically made through international money transfer operators, like Western unions, and then the fees range usually between 1% to 5% of the amount being transferred, and that comes to about $24 billion annually. So IMF is also willingly offering technical assistance and policy advice. And I think that,
why are you laughing? It's funny now. You're telling us our own will not work, but your own will work.
And no, they're not saying it will not work. They are
saying it will affect their own economy.
They are understanding the impact of what this e-money will do. And they're saying, okay, we're willing to give you assistance when it comes to data analysis, cross-country studies, where we can tell you how it has affected this country and how it may affect your country, and whatever other assistance. In fact, we're involved in this one, in rolling out this one by giving some form of advice. Yes. They also mentioned the positives of the e-Naira, that right now about 38 million Nigerians do not have bank accounts, but that the e-Naira, because it's a mobile thing, would encourage nearly, they're looking to nearly about 90% of the population to get on it. And so that means more people will have, bank accounts or this e-Naira accounts.
We should be very careful of the sort of advice that we take, because these people, their interests first before us. But I took a story yesterday where ASU has threatened the federal government that in 3 weeks they will be going on strike if nothing is done to attend to their memorandum of understanding or act. And so the minister, Dr. Chris Inhibehe, is saying that he's assuring Nigerians that the strike will not hold, because they are putting all measures in place to ensure that they settle ASU before the ultimatum expires. They're also saying that the 30 billion revitalization fund and the 22.1 billion earned allowances will be made, will be paid directly to the universities and not to the union, and this will happen before the ultimatum is over. So we should, be patient with them, that something will happen and the children will not stay home.
So the governors concerning the Paris Club, we've been following the story of this Paris Club. The figure is very, very funny. Every time I see it, $419 million, a Paris Club loan refund, consultants. The governors met in Abuja Monday evening, and they all agreed that for the sake of the prosperity of the states, the government cannot afford to be making deductions of the deduction of the $419 million cash from the federation account, because it will reduce the allocation that gets to the governors. They vehemently said that they are not going to follow a political solution. That a source that refused to be named said that the governors have reports from the EFCC that supports their case, and it's already in the court, and they feel that whatever the consultants used to get that judgment that gave them $419 million cannot face appellate court, and that if they continue with the court, the case will probably be struck out. So they are going to follow litigation as their own solution to the matter, and nobody should advise them to consider political solutions.
Okay, so I was going to take this EndSARS, #EndSARS report. So the United Nations have all commended the reports that is out, and they're saying that they urge the government to implement the recommendations of the Judicial Panel to rebuild trust and start the process of healing and reconciliation. And the U.S., on their own part, said that the events of the #EndSARS had led to serious allegations against some members of the security offices, and they look forward to Lagos State and the federal government taking suitable actions and measures to address those alleged abuses in the report. And of course, Femi Falana and other lawyers have also insisted that implementation, that's where we are right now, there must be full and complete, total implementation of the recommendations by the Judicial Panel. Okay, let's go on a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue with the review. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.
Thanks for staying with us. Moving on now to Daily Sun. Anger over Lagos #EndSARS report. Igbo's leaders have lost touch with people, says Ohaneze. Restructuring better than secession, Fayemi tells Igboho, Kanu and others. 2 trillion naira loan disbursed to households, MSMEs, big firms in 1 year, says Emefiele. FG warns unions against picketing, and reps move to avert fresh ASU strike. Okay, story are we taking?
So, speaking as a guest lecturer at the combined 9th and 10th Zik lecture series at the Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Awka, the governor of Ekiti State, Dr. Okayode Fayemi, appealed to all the different secessionist, separatist groups and saying that really we can achieve more as a united Nigeria, and that there's so many benefits, especially if we look to restructuring instead of secession and separate, constantly seeking for separation. And he says that dialogue can take care of a lot of things that would not involve carrying arms or losing lives. We can sit down at the table, have a conversation, and really also look to the benefits of restructuring as a united Nigeria than constantly talking about separation, because there's even also no guarantees that when you go this route, it would, it would make things better for the people. So that's what he was telling them at the lecture.
MSMEs?
Yes, so the central bank governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, was speaking in South Africa. I think there's an African trade fair ongoing in Durban, and he mentioned how immediately the pandemic broke, the president called himself and the Minister for Finance and Budget, Mrs. Zainab Ahmed, and the conversation was for them to deploy a blueprint on how to stem the negative situation that will fall out. And the agreement was that the fiscal wing would provide 500 billion, and the monetary wing was to come up with 1.5 trillion at the first instance. The governor for the CBN mentioned that as things went, people were needing money over and over again, that they extended to over 2 trillion to 3 trillion. The money was used for manufacturing sector. It wasn't a grant. They were loans, but single-digit loan with 2-year moratorium. So anybody that got the loan would not be under pressure to pay back immediately within the first 2 years. But the loans are also not meant for players within the fiscal space to share. That they did their own part of providing funds, and they're expecting to see that. That's why probably the challenges that it was also defending what they have done as the financial sector to reduce the impact of the pandemic on our sector, small and medium scales and households.
So Ohaneze took a swipe at Igbo leaders, saying that they've lost touch with the people. According to him, he was given a speech titled "If Zik Were Alive," and he was extolling the virtues of Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, and he was saying that if they hadn't lost touch with the people, there's no way a group can actually effect a sit at home in the Southeast, and nothing was done about it. So it was just in that speech, he was talking about the lessons learned from Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, and how if they had taken some of the virtues from him, maybe they would have been able to connect with the people as they should have at this time. Okay, moving on quickly now to the Nigerian Tribune. US to Lagos FG act on #EndSARS panel report. Unilorry expels 400 level students who beat lecturer to stupor. NASU threatens strike over alleged bias in payment of earned allowances. We've flown 3,700 missions against terrorist bandits, says NAF. Killings in Sokoto by bandits, needless violence, says Buhari. Electoral Act amendment, direct primary easier to manipulate by governor, says Ortom. And $5.8 billion Mambila project, firm waives $500 million penalty for Nigeria, FG celebrates. Okay, which story are we taking?
While we're still, talking about how to solve ASU's issue, NASU, which is the Non-Academic Staff Union of Universities, are complaining and threatening to resume their strike, saying that there's a lot of disparity in their sharing formula. They're accusing, so they had a talk and they said government officials on hidden bias towards academic staff against non-teaching staff of universities and inter-university centers in the payment of end allowances. And according to the national president, he is saying that the crisis that they are having in the educational system, especially when it comes to ASU and NASU, is because the people who are the non-academic teaching staff feel that there's this unfairness and lack of equity that's being shown, especially in their sharing formula. Sometimes they get it's shared between 80 and 20%. Other times it's 75 and 25%. And you cannot motivate people to work when it seems like you are biased towards how you treat everybody. And so they said they had tried to get the Minister of Labor and Employment to, mediate in this matter, but he told them to go to the Ministry of Education or go to the National Nigerian Universities Commission to handle this issue, that he's not involved in it. And so he's giving them that they feel like it's only an industrial action that would make them understand that they are supposed to be treated with fairness, justice, and equity. And so this is an appeal to the federal government to wade in and solve this issue that they are having, or else they will go back and have their strike.
So I want to take the Mambila story. This has been an ongoing story forever. As at May 22, 2003, and the contract was awarded for the Mambila project, which is supposed to generate like 1,500 megawatts. Amazing, we all applauded it. Then it was terminated in 2007 and re-awarded to a Chinese company and several other companies who have been unable to effectively put any structure on ground in Mambila because the first company that got the contract wasn't rightfully allowed to execute. The termination wasn't legal, and it took them to court. They've been in arbitration. In that arbitration, the government agreed to a settlement, which, if you remember what happened in the UK, they did not pay. Interest had piled up on that non-paid, and they signed it. They signed they were going to pay the agreement, and they signed that if they don't pay the $20 million, they would be paying interest for every year. The interest piled up to 500 million, more than the original 200 million. Ew. Now, in an act of generosity, according to the way the paper coached it, Mr. Leno Adesoya, the chairman and CEO of Sunrise Power and Transmission Company Limited, the original person that got the contract, has waived the additional 500 million. In that, let's just patriotism. Let's just pay the one you are owing, and then let's start the contract, because this is Mambila is a huge project that would have provided us a lot of power supply. But since 2003, 2003, we have been unable to successfully let that contract ride through with plenty money that we're losing. In addition to, apart from this money, we've lost billions because we didn't get the power to work, and they were going to pay money for our inefficiency in following through with the contract.
Right. Mariam, you have any story here? Yeah. Okay. Let's move on now to the Vanguard. Act on EndSARS. We talked about that already. Economy rescue funds came from banks' cash reserves. Toju Salem, why we didn't inform families, says Wuse Hospital. Senate moves to mediate diplomatic row between Nigeria and UAE. 5 dead, 10 injured. 12 vehicles destroyed in Lagos gas explosion. Unilorry expels students for beating lecturer to comatose. Nigeria set to recover $200 million stashed abroad, says Malami. And leaders needed to unite Nigeria, says Jonathan, Ezefe, Fayemi, and others. Okay.
Yes, so this is just like an update on Mr. Salem's. Remember the journalist, Vanguard journalist, that has been his body found. So the hospital, that's the General Hospital in Wuse, is saying that they're not to blame, because they're asking how come you received his body since on the 13th of October and you did not let the family know. He said it is not in their place as a hospital to reach out to relatives or to the police. He was brought in on the 13th by a police officer and a federal road safety personnel. And on the day they brought him, they said that they could not identify him, but the police officer left his number. They said the next day while they were stitching him up, they found his ID card and called the police officer and told him, we found his ID card. Come, identify the body, and then, of course, subsequently let the relatives know. And he said that was just silence from the police officer. They even put his name here. Said they called him many times, and he just stopped picking his calls. And that it is not in their place to go and tell a particular relative that he's there, because usually it happens that you tell one set of relatives, another set of relatives will come and show up and say, why did you hand over the body to this one? So it's a police work.
Okay. Let me quickly give updates on the fight against insurgency. The Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Isiaka Amao, was defending the 2022 budget to the National Assembly, and then he mentioned how just between January till date in 2021, the Nigerian Air Force has flown 7,000 hours, ran 4,600 sorties. They've flown 3,700 flights just within the northeast and the northwest against the Boko Haram, the insurgency, and the banditry. That these are the things that are being done. And I was quick to want to mention this story because many times we wonder what happens with, is anything going on? Well, a lot is going on. 3,700 is not a small amount of mission to take place by the, and they said they also inducted 16 newly acquired aircraft into the fleet to support the insurgencies. All of this in defending the new budget for 2022, and we're hoping to see more results from them come next year.
So just, do I have a follow-up story, like an update of the Saludin Waliu, a student of University of Ilorin, who beat up a project supervisor, a female lecturer, to comatose. So she had already taken the story, but just that he wanted to ask the lecturer to hide him. So they were supposed to carry out this compulsory industrial workers experience. And he did not do it. And he went to the lecturer's office and wanted to appeal to the lecturer to cover him up. And the lecturer said no. He was banging on the table and then started dishing out slaps. And when the lecturer was running away, he pursued her, jumped through the window, entered another office, and was beating her up till she hit her head and collapsed. So the update now is that the management of the university has finally expelled him. So they brought him to face the panel after investigations. Now he's been expelled. They've asked him to bring all the properties of the university in his ID card and, and all of that. And they have handed him over to the police to continue from there.
Okay, that's all we can take on Front Page Review. When we come back, move on to our hot topic of the day. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.
Thanks for staying with us. So, this morning we'll be discussing our thoughts on the report of the Judicial Panel of Inquiry on the defunct Special Anti-Robbery Squad. That's #EndSARS. Join us on the show for this conversation is Barrister Inhibehe Effiong. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Maria.
It's always a pleasure having you on the show.
My pleasure to be here.
All right, so Nigerians have been talking about this report, and while reviewing the report, we heard from the Lagos State government that a four-man committee will be set up to put together a white paper. As a lawyer, I want you to help Nigerians understand the necessity of this, because we'll come to the report, but why is there a need for a white paper after a report such as this has been released to the public?
Thank you. The constitution of a committee, or a white paper committee to review the report submitted by the panel of inquiry, is not eccentric, it's not strange in itself. It is something that happens regularly, all the time. Usually when a panel is constituted, or the governor impanels a committee to inquire into a particular subject under the Tribunal of Inquiry law of Lagos State, or any other law in the state, any other state, upon the completion of his assignment, that panel submits a report, which is advisory in nature, which makes recommendation, note the word recommendation, to the government. The panel of inquiry does not implement the findings and the recommendations. It is left at the discretion of the convening authority, in this case, the governor of Lagos State. Now, what the white paper committee is usually expected to do is to look at the report as submitted and come out with the position of the government on it.
Okay.
In terms of implementation, because as I said, the panel of inquiry does not implement.
Right.
And we must also say that ordinarily, the recommendations of the committee advisory, it is not strictly speaking binding on the convening authority.
Ah.
Yes. It is not binding. It is a recommendation. Yes. Because executive power is domiciled in the governor, not in the panel.
Right.
The reason why this has become controversial is principally because in this instance, the Lagos State government and the governor of Lagos State are interested parties in the inquiry for which this report has been submitted. So people are now saying, well, that looking at even the membership of the White Paper Committee, which essentially comprises of commissioners, the Attorney General, the Commissioner for Youth, and so on, people are asking, is the government not being a judge in his own case? Wouldn't it have been better? Wouldn't it have served the purpose of natural justice and impartiality to have the membership of that White Committee totally insulated from the government? I think that is the fear that people are expressing.
How can people who are not empowered to give that sort of position be a part of that panel? Because it's a government decision. You told us that external parties have recommended. It's now left for the government to use their discretion, right, to now do how put all the documents or white paper on how we're going to implement. So why would people who are not part of government be part of that white paper? That's my bit of confusion.
No, they can't, because even the panel of inquiry itself had representative of the Lagos State government. In fact, the secretary of that panel, I think, was an official of the Lagos State Ministry of Justice. Right. The Lagos State government was also part of the panel. It was represented by a council. I also appeared at that panel at some point when they started their findings. I was one of those who joined the team to represent the victims of the Lekki toll gate incident. Right. So what we are saying is that when you now set up a white paper committee, the white paper committee is not required to necessarily do a fresh inquiry. No. Let's not be mistaken. Yes. They are not going to call fresh evidence. They are not going to examine further witnesses. They are not going to review documents. All they are supposed to do is to say, okay, we have seen this recommendation. Regarding this is how to implement it. Regarding the renaming of Lekki toll gate, for example, to EndSARS toll gate, this is accepted by government. So that white paper must clearly state what is accepted.
I'll come to you. I'm sorry, but I want to stay on this for a little bit, because why would I not trust a governor who has put together a panel of inquiry, have come up with this report that many of us have commended, to also put together another panel for the white paper? Why is that an issue? Why are people now worried if this 4-man panel would actually be fair or would do a good job? So if the panel did a good job on the recommendation, why am I then questioning or second guessing what this 4-man panel would do? That's the same authority.
For me, ultimately, I think history will, clearly apportion responsibility on this, because the reason why people are apprehensive, as I said, is that, take for example, if there is a gas explosion in Lagos, like I think it happened yesterday. Yeah. The government now constitutes a panel of inquiry to examine the remote and immediate causes of that explosion. Ordinarily, you cannot strictly say, oh, this is the fault of the Lagos State government. It could have been due to an act of God. It could have been due to natural occurrence. It could have been due to carelessness on the part, of a tanker driver or whatever. But when you have an incident where a panel has said it was the governor who invited the military to invade the toll gate, indicting the state governor. So let us wait. Okay. Maybe we should give the Governor Sanwo-Olu some benefit of doubt. Let us see what the white paper is going to say.
All right, let me come to the ladies.
So you've already hinted at where the next question will go to, which is, what do you think about this recommendations of this report? What was your first opinion? Some people felt like it shouldn't have been public, but what do you think of these recommendations that this report has brought up, and how do you believe it should be implemented? I'm asking you to do white paper job, but...
No, I was not surprised with the recommendations made, because if you look at the membership of that panel of inquiry, it was generally constituted by people of proven integrity. You had Learned Senior Advocate Ebung Adegorowa, a man who has a long history of fighting for the common people. You had very credible people in that panel. So I had no fears. And the evidence were uncontested. I was part of that process. The evidence was clear and unequivocal. So when they came up with these recommendations, I was very impressed, especially on the vexed question of whether there was a massacre or not. The panel didn't leave it elusive. The panel came clearly to take a position on that matter. Now, what will now happen to implementation? I don't want Nigerians to be carried away because, like we say, eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. To begin with, we must admit that the governor and the government of Lagos State does not have 100% power to implement recommendations of that panel. There are aspects of the panel's recommendation that must necessarily be implemented by the president and the federal government, especially the one pertaining to the conduct of the military. Yeah. Because if you look at the Constitution, Section 218 of the Constitution, the operational use of the armed forces is vested in the president and commander-in-chief. Will the federal government be able? Are they even willing to implement it? I am not optimistic. And why am I saying I'm not optimistic? In 2016, we had a massacre in Kaduna State in Zaria, where Buratai's convoy was obstructed by members of the Islamic Movement of Nigeria. At the end of the day, 348 persons were killed as found by the Justice Mohammed Garba-led panel of inquiry. Has it been implemented? The answer is no. Has anybody been put on trial? The answer is no. Was anybody dismissed? The answer is no. So why would we now expect that this is going to be different? Time will determine whether I am right or not.
Let me go on a break. This is an interesting angle. Let me go on a quick break. When we come back, we continue this conversation. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your view will be right back.
Thanks for staying with us. We're still discussing the Judicial Panel of Inquiry report. Yes, BC had a question for the break.
Yes, so I'm glad that you touched on the problems of implementation. You know, across the country, we have recommendations, but we find there's no political will to implement some of these recommendations. What would happen if, at the end of this white paper, and the government, whether it's the federal government or the state government, fails to implement some of these recommendations? What should the people now do?
It will be an invitation for another EndSARS. It's as simple as that. You see, my concern is that we have a leadership in this country that does not learn from history. In 2018, the National Human Rights Commission went around the 6 geopolitical zones to investigate cases of abuses by SARS. That panel indicted several SARS operatives, even recommended prosecution of a number of them. When they submitted their reports, it was thrown into the dustbin of history. When EndSARS happened, that was when the Attorney General of the Federation suddenly woke up and said, oh, that's the recommendation, there's a report by the National Human Rights Commission. Till date, it has not been implemented. No police officer, no former SARS operative have been put on trial on account of that report. Some of these persons kill people, many people, cases of missing individuals, like the Awuza SARS, nothing has been done. So what I'm saying is that when you have a country where impunity is an official policy of states, it is very difficult to tell Nigerians or to tell citizens that they cannot come out to protest. Because what really led to the EndSARS?
Let's stay on the report for a moment. Go ahead, ma'am.
Yes. Okay, so talking about the white paper as well, I wonder because, you know, one of the major things concerning the whole EndSARS, what happened and the aftermath, was even acknowledging that there were deaths at the toll gate. So in presenting this white paper, would it include an acknowledgement of that, or should it, and also an apology about that, you know, and then the recommendations that the state government can carry out will begin. Just as you said, there's some things that the federal government has to do. So that if that is done, would that in some way begin to, you know, quell tension and, you know, different emotions, so that also people trust that government is on the way to, you know, mending all that has, you know, that has happened?
It is very important for me as a sign of good faith. That is why I'm saying maybe we should give the governor some modicum of benefit of doubt to see whether he will live up to his promises. To begin with, I do not understand why offering an apology should be difficult. It is the simplest of the recommendations. I also do not see any challenge in renaming the toll gate or saying that 20th of October every day should be a toll-free day. I also do not see any challenge in compensating victims Even some have already been compensated.
Yeah.
So these recommendations are implementable. There is nothing complicated about these recommendations. The government must acknowledge that people were killed. In fact, they have already acknowledged by the findings of the committee. It was set up by the government. They must go further to now state unequivocally that we committed a crime against the youths of this country. Because this is why this is important. The incident of the toll gate for me was the most virulent attack on patriotism.
Yes.
When you are saying people should not fight for Biafra, and you kill them, you say people should not fight for Duduwa Republic, and you detain Inhibehe and kill some of his supporters. And those who are fighting for Nigeria, singing the national anthem, raising the national flag, were shot and killed. So what do you want? Don't fight for Biafra, don't fight for Duduwa, don't also fight for Nigeria. The government must take a position. So when you attack people for singing the national anthem of their country, that was an atrocity against Nigeria.
There's still a gray area that I think I need clarity, and I'd like you to help me here. We've seen quite a bit of unrest in the southeast, where it seems like the security forces were overwhelmed by hoodlums. And many were advising the government or the governors of the state to invite the military to support, to help to reinforce, to help secure lives and property. Number one. Number two, we've seen how volatile elections have been, where we're calling the military to help support, to ensure that there's sanity. Thirdly, this same time, October 28th last year, we saw the military come also to Ikeja. The same governor asked for reinforcement because we all saw the burning of tires, the destruction of properties, where it was as law and order were broken down in Lagos State. And as a governor, he called for reinforcement. Please, I need help. Now, is that a crime? Because now they're saying, oh, because he called for the army is a problem. And we're thinking, I thought governors is within their purview to ask for reinforcement when there's a breakdown of law and order, because this same military went to Alausa and they were there in Ikeja and there was no massacre there. So what happened? Who gave therefore the instruction, therefore, where in Ikeja, in toll gates, there was killing? So is it therefore fair to assume or to incriminate that it was the governor that gave that instruction? That's the gray area that I really need clarity on.
For me, the issue is that if you look at the Constitution, I started by enlightening that under Section 218 of the Constitution, the operational use of the armed forces is vested in the President. And Section 130 says the President shall be the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federation. If you also look at the Armed Forces Act, the President is also allowed to delegate his powers under the Constitution. In writing, yes, for the President to delegate, in writing.
Yes.
So people are now, and you see, the problem is that we are so used to abuse in Nigeria. Ordinarily, if everything had gone well on the 20th, we probably would not be having conversation on why the military was invited.
Yes.
Because governors invite the military to intervene in civilian affairs almost every day.
Exactly.
The Nigerian military is about the most abused in the world. They carry handbags of wives of politicians. They follow politicians to parties. They arrest husband and wife over disputes. The military goes to protect property. Right. The military does everything. The military goes to demolish. There's nothing the military. The military even regulates traffic in Nigeria. So this abuse of the military is something that we inherited from long years of military dictatorship. Now people are asking, what did the governor do wrong? I make a concession that there was violence, there was carnage, there was arson, which was condemnable, including the attack on your organization. These things cannot be tolerated. Yeah. But the point is that people are saying, given what transpired, because you rightly said the military was at Ikeja, why did they not shoot at people?
You were given the instruction.
I was at the panel of inquiry when General Bello testified. And one of the questions we asked him under cross-examination was that all the instances of violence that you cited as the basis for your intervention took place after 20th of October. Most of the politicians in Lagos were burnt after that day. Yeah. So what we are saying, I know the governor politically may not be very willing to say certain things, because do not forget he said it was beyond his control. So if he invited them, somebody gave, the military acts based on chain of command. Somebody told them open fire. And that person must be identified and put on trial. Beyond the invitation by the governor, the person who gave the order for them to open fire on civilians must be arrested and put on trial.
Okay, let me take this call from Philip when I come to Metope. Hello, Philip, are you still there? Hello, Philip. Okay, I think I lost that call. Go ahead, talking.
Who are the people that can give?
Hello, Philip, are you there? Go ahead, talking.
So, obviously, you already mentioned in the beginning of your conversation that we might not get any reply from the military perspective. Even the report mentioned how the request for the presence of specific military officers didn't show up. You know, so we might not. I think looking towards that angle might not be realistic for Nigerians. What would you say is a realistic expectation from Nigerians? Number one. Number two. One of the core issues with EndSARS was a reform of the police force. And I believe that at the end of the day, we mustn't get distracted from what our goal was, which is to ensure that the police get everything they need to help them be efficient in protecting us. We need them. So how do we translate from that anger of this is what happened in EndSARS to the point where we understand that we still need the police force in Nigeria? Is it decentralization? Is it just reforms? Is it state police? What would you say is the realistic approach for Nigerians to expect as a resolution for these issues?
Well, I don't want to be accused of being unnecessarily pessimistic, but I can tell you, Buhari will not implement the recommendations. The president will not implement the recommendations of this committee.
Wow.
He will not. History has shown he will not. The day the Buratai was appointed as the non-career ambassador, that was a clear message to Nigerians. So anybody who is expecting the chief of army staff to be fired, the minister of defense to be fired, or General Bello to be fired on court martial is wasting his time. Another government will implement it. Now regarding reform, it is another government will have to implement it. I don't have any confidence that this government will implement it. If you are saying that, because what we were talking about, look at what is happening. Have they stopped harassing people on the road? The answer is no.
Well, it seems the governor's hands are tied. The police don't report to him.
Police,
He doesn't have access to the army. So what can the governor therefore do to demonstrate to the Nigerian people that he have seen this recommendation and this is what I want to do to quell your thoughts against this thing?
Every state, you know, people say governors have no control over the police. That is not totally correct. Under section 215 of the Constitution, the Constitution gives the governor of a state the power to give such lawful directives to the Commissioner of Police. And the Commissioner of Police is bound to obey, except that he may defer to Abuja. The question I've always asked is, because I had that conversation with the Commissioner of Information of Lagos, I said, cite one example where Governor Sanwo-Olu called Odumosu, the CP, and said, do this. And he said, sir, I want to seek clearance from the IG. So when governors say they don't control the police, they are being economical with the truth, because every state has Security Council, presided over by the governor. That Security Council has the army, has the Air Force, has the police, all security agencies. There is also the Nigeria Police Council that we seldom talk about, comprising of all the governors in Nigeria. The Police Council is a very important body. So when it has to do with political intervention, arousing their opponents in Nigeria, governors don't complain about controlling the police. But I do agree that systematically, in terms of structure, it ultimately lies with the federal government. But let us not say, oh, they don't have any hand. How about security votes that every governor takes home monthly?
What do they do with it?
Don't they give this part of this money to the police? Let the governor start by withholding his allocation, his grants to the police. And tell them that in my state, anybody who is killed by the police, you lose your subvention for the month. Let a governor in Nigeria write a petition to the president.
So you're saying it's political will?
It's political will. Let governors stop making excuses. They have the power to regulate what the police does in their state.
Let me go on a quick break. We're going to go to the final lap of this conversation. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.
Thanks for staying with us. We're still discussing this report that Nigerians are talking about. Bisi, you had a question for the break.
Yes, so one of the panel's recommendations is that all the protesters who have been arrested over a year now should be released. That means that some people are still in custody and have not been released. That's one. But now that we're now having that feeling that these recommendations, even after the white paper, may not be, adhered to or implemented, what do we begin to do? Because I know that the U.S., on one hand, has said that they are waiting for the white paper recommendations too before they can move or do something. Do we now start looking to international organizations and civil societies to be on standby? Peradventure, this is just being swept under the carpet after this white paper.
I have some problem with our overdependence or reliance on international community in quotes. Because at the end of the day, the United States government will do what is in their strategic interest. Look at the selling of Tucano jets to Nigeria, for example. Some people were saying that because you have a military that is involved in killing of civilians, a military that has no respect for human rights, why are you selling military jets to Nigeria? But at the end of the day, the U.S. strategic interests demanded that they should do it. Now, I don't understand what the U.S. mean by they are waiting for the white paper. The recommendation is that the baby has already come out. The mother is no longer pregnant. Give a name to the baby. Those who did these things, they have been named. They are faces. What can the international community do? Very simple. Start with a visa ban. All those who are responsible, do not allow them access to your country. If there is something that the political class in this country is terrified of, it is denial of access to countries where they enjoy the things that they deprive us of here. Stop them from going to the UK. Stop them from going to America. You will see that people will sit up.
Right.
Freeze their assets. These are things that they can do. Very simple thing, but I don't want us to say that the recommendations cannot be implemented.
Right.
It is implementable. What is lacking is political will.
Okay.
And I have said we have the aspect of the Lagos State government.
We'll come
and
to
the
that.
federal
Let me
government.
join a few questions.
So on the other side, we had protesters who went out, who were burning down buildings, you know, some police officers were killed, and some police officers were killed, and you know, and I hear that some of these people are on trial already, and some police officers' families are being compensated. So wouldn't it be in the interest of the Lagos State government to make sure that on the other side of bringing to book those in uniform who also, you know, carried out some of, you know, in fact, the reason why we're here, who carried out brutality and the shootings, to be prosecuted as well, since it's already done on the civilian side? Wouldn't it be in the interest of the governor to make sure that this is done, and, you know, it will give him credibility?
First, let me say I haven't seen evidence that the genuine EndSARS protesters, that I saw, that I witnessed, because at some point, I participated in that protest. There was a day that, you know, I was privileged to lead lawyers in Lagos to the Commissioner of Police Office to protest. Somebody cannot say I burnt anybody's property or that I am a hoodlum. The genuine protesters were not involved in this carnage. Now, what we must realize is that there is a lack of culture of responsibility, of accountability in this country. I have told you that in 2018, the National Human Rights Commission indicted several police officers for killing Nigerians. None of them has been put on trial. This is despite the passage of the Anti-Torture Act under this government in 2017 that criminalized the torture of suspects in Nigeria. Now, let us wait and see, because they are saying, oh, white people, and all of us are talking about Lagos. There are 36 states in Nigeria. How many of those states have even submitted their reports? How many states have set out a certain amount of money as compensation apart from Lagos? How about the federal government? Osibanjo has not told us. The National Economic Council has not told us. When are they sending the supplementary budget to the National Assembly?
Based on what you're saying,
to compensate the victims.
Because based on what you're saying, there are three names that were mentioned in the recommendations. So we have Lieutenant Colonel S.O. Bello, Major General Godwin Umelo, that's from the Army. And from the police, we have the CSP Raji Ganiyu, who is the Divisional Police Officer at Maroko Police Station. These are people that, based on the recommendations, they're asking that they should indict or they should undergo disciplinary actions. But based on what you're saying that that might not be done because it comes from the federal government. But on the part of the Lagos State government, and I want us to have an open conversation here, a private company was indicted, the owners of the toll gate. Even some of the other, I'm trying to remember the other issue. What can the governor do, as I said, to demonstrate to Nigerians that the ones within my purview, I can carry out. The ones within my purview, I would ensure that we fix this so that at least Nigerians know, that Lagosians know that the governor of the state is ensuring that there is an implementation of part of the recommendation within his own purview.
In quick addition, before you answer that, I wanted to just, you hinted at it, but just to state clearly that Lagos State has paid compensation to the tune of 420 million to those that have not, those that were affected by the EndSARS protest. While we're still expecting many other states, they were even indicted at the anniversary that Oyo hasn't paid, Osun, Akwa Ibom, Benue, Ogun, Gombe, they haven't paid any compensation, despite the fact that they were
Lagos
also...
State has paid some compensation. So what else can they do at this point to show the demonstrator?
The governor can do a lot. Let us, as I said, we shouldn't be mistaken. Legally, the governor is constrained when it comes to the military and the police. He cannot sanction them. But these officers function and operate in his state. If I am the governor of Lagos State, if I cannot put those military officers on trial, I can at least send a memo to the president and say, these people are in my state. I do not want them to serve here anymore. That is if you don't want to sanction them. Now, LCC is not entirely a private company. LCC is a private company with a government interest. If you look at the history of LCC, it was a public-private partnership. The government had a serious stake in LCC. In fact, LCC is owned by the Lagos State government, even though it is registered as a private entity. So let us not say that the governor cannot do anything. LCC tried to cover up evidence, as found by the committee. Somebody switched off the light. Has that person been fired? The answer is no. Those who went to clean the toll gate, those who went to clean the toll gate to tamper with evidence, have they been dissatisfied? Have they been fired? Governor Sanwo-Olu can do these things. Because he has immunity, you cannot put the governor on trial. He can say, oh, I invited the military in good faith. But on account of that invitation, people lost their lives. You must apologize. Because if Nigeria were a serious country, by now you would have had litany of resignations. You would not wait for the president to say, I no longer need you. You would not wait for the governor to sanction. People would have tendered their resignation. The chief of army staff would have left office by now. The chief of army staff would have left office. Even the commissioner of police of Lagos State, he would have tendered his resignation in the US. When blacks are killed by the police, you find the heads of police in those states or localities resign voluntarily.
We don't know how to resign.
Why is the culture of resignation a strange thing to us? So let the governor implement those that are within his power.
All right, thank you very much,
thank you so
for
much.
sharing your thoughts on this. I think we have to wrap up on this. We'll look forward to the white paper. It's going to take about 2 weeks. And we know the governor of the Lagos State has demonstrated in good faith to constitute this panel of inquiry. And I mean, I'm also particularly impressed that they were independent enough to carry out this investigation. Because I remember I was telling somebody the other day, when I was a young girl, during the Babangida and Abacha regime, this was almost impossible. But thank God for democracy that these people were allowed to work independently. Now we have this report. The next steps is what we're waiting for, that the governor of Lagos State did show that he in good faith that this committee was set up, will also have in good faith implementation of the white paper, which we're expecting in the next 2 weeks. Thank you very much, sir.
Oh, my pleasure. That's been my pleasure speaking with these powerful ladies.
That is all we can take on this segment. When we come back and move on to other topics, stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your view will be right back.
Thanks for staying with us. So we have the chairman of the Economic Financial Crime Commission, EFCC, Abdulrasheed Bawa, to discuss the anti-corruption drive of the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Yes, last time you were here, you were the zonal commander in Lagos State, and we're really happy about it. Just for us to hear, better being he's in Abuja, talking to the president and all that. Tell us, how was the transition from coming from Lagos State and now having to deal with the national cases on EFCC?
Well, thank you very much once again for having me. The transition has been good. You know, all my life I've worked at the EFCC. The EFCC's job is the only job that I've done in my life. As a young officer, you know, rising through the ranks, I never expected that, of course, you know, I will reach the peak of my career at such a young age. Well, of course, when it happens, I was, as one of our elders have said before, some years back, I was besieged by several emotions of pride, emotions of humility, emotions of joy, and all of that. And it's really a good feeling that I and my colleagues, you know, are now at the helms of affairs at the EFCC, you know, doing what we have to do or what we have been trained to do to ensure that this country is rid of economic and financial crimes. Right. But of course, you know, being an investigator is different from being a team leader, from being a sectional head, from being a zonal commander, and then, of course, being the chairman is a different ball game in its entirety. Now that you have the entire country, you know, at your disposal, you know, to ensure that things are done rightly and correctly. The timing, of course, is not enough. 24 hours always, you know, you have to work and ensure that building the system as well as reaching out to
when you got the job, what did the president tell you? When you doing that, what did he tell you? What was the brief? What did he tell you after you became chairman? What did he tell you?
Morayo, do you think that I will sit here and tell you what I discussed with the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria? Everybody knows the president's stand, you know, on corruption. Everywhere, you know, we have his picture looking down on us, you know, reminding us that if we don't kill corruption, corruption would kill this country. The political will that the country has been clamoring for, you know, for the fight against corruption is now here with us. You know, everybody has seen that. Everybody is having the feeling, you know, that corruption is being fought, and that has been the position or the life of His Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and that is what the EFCC is set out to do. So discussion is on that path. You know, we are the professionals. We should go and do what we have to do to ensure that the country is rid of the menace of corruption.
Yes. So, you know, I was thinking that I'm sure it didn't take you didn't have enough time to even enjoy that period, that congratulatory period, because you had to hit the ground running. And a lot of people have said, you know, we're seeing you a lot on TV, we're seeing you at court cases as witness. You seem quite hands-on and involved. Is this a strategy of yours? Is this how it should be done? Or what is this specifically your strategy that you brought in place so that people see you front and center?
Well, of course, every leader is supposed to, you know, lead from the front, you know, and you have to lead by example. I have to be there. I have to show that, yes, it can be done and all of that. But I think maybe if I understand you correctly, you are trying to say, why is it that maybe as the chairman I'm in court or I'm testifying and all of that?
Big man chairman now, you're at the back. We have to call and call and call before we reach big man chairman. But this chairman is in front.
No, but I'm a practitioner. You know, I think the difference is the fact that, of course, chairman is more of a supervisor, is more of a coordinator of how things should be done, how things should be carried out. But then before I became the chairman, I have investigated quite a number of cases myself. I have cautioned a lot of people. I have, you know, witnessed recording of statements. I have carried out, you know, several investigation activities from, what do you call it, from statement, analysis of the complaint, of course, up to the conclusion of sending the case to legal department. So I have to be the one to testify in those cases that I was deeply involved from the beginning. And it so happened that I'm the chairman, and then I have to go to the court to testify as an investigator. So that is what it is.
All right, so let's talk about the job proper.
Yes.
You have, the EFCC has been in the news recently and lately for barging into people's rooms in the middle of the night in commando style. And a lot of Nigerians are not really finding it funny. We've seen videos on social media where innocent people came out to say, I just went to this hotel to have a good time, and then EFCC officials barged in and they couldn't even apologize. They told me, you know, those stories have been out there. What do you say about this? Is this the style that we should now begin to expect and adopt, that this is the way EFCC operates? Or do you think it's just the overzealousness of some of your officials?
Neither of such. You see, BC, the EFCC is an institution that was established in 2002. We have done quite a lot in investigation and prosecution of cyber criminals and, you know, advanced fee fraudsters, if I am allowed to use that word. It is not part of who we are, you know, by our mandate to be violent in nature and whatever. After all, economic and financial crimes are non-violent crimes by definition. If you look at the provision of Section 46 that define economic and financial crime, it is defined in there as the non-violent, crimes carried out by individual, group of individuals in an organized manner, etc., etc. Now, we're in the world of social media, where one small thing can be amplified to look as if that is what we are doing, or that is what you are doing as an individual or as a group. It is not in our character. That is not what we set out to do. That is not what has happened. Look, from January to date, we have arrested nothing less than 2,000 alleged suspected cyber criminals across this country. And then you have one or two, persons complaining about something. Of course, we need to be concerned, about human rights, about people's privacy, etc., etc. But then if you look at the statistics vis-a-vis people that were arrested or people that are complaining that this is what has happened and all of that, then we're looking inwards to see that where we are wrong, we correct that, and we admit, we apologize, and then we move on. But I want to assure you that all the sting operations that we carried out, we carried them professionally. We carried them within the ambit of the law. We are a law-abiding institution, and will continue to be a law-abiding institution to the latter.
Okay.
So let's share a few victory stories. You've been appointed since 24th of February this year, and I would like you to share, because many times Nigerians have been, over the years, built a level of distrust of the system. And I always say that because we don't hear enough from our officers, whether officers of the law or political officers, we don't know they are working. We don't believe they are working. I would like you to tell us, since you came on board in February 2021, what are the cases you've won, cases you lost, recoveries that have been made, landmark achievements that you would say this journey has been worth it for you so far, and that would encourage Nigerians to keep trusting EFCC to continue to do the job they've been created to do?
Yes, I think, I don't know whether I'm qualified to say that, but as a Nigerian, I know that we have to learn to trust our leaders. Very important. How can somebody wake up in the morning, dress up, see his children off to school, and then set out to go to his office, and then he will not be working? You understand? You understand? The Nigerians should expect that people are working. But are we working maybe to expectation in all strata of government? Some are not, etc., etc. But coming down to what you said, the 3,816 officers of the EFCC, I assure you, since when I came on board, they have been cooperative. We have been working round the clock, to ensure that we are, solidifying our stand in the country as an institution. We are engaging stakeholders. We are collaborating with, stakeholders from within and outside this country. And let me tell you this: we deliberately try to, change some strategies regarding how some of these things are being done. But yesterday, one of your, colleagues asked me in court, and I told her that we have recorded from January to the 4th of November 2021, an unprecedented 1,499 convictions.
Wow.
Now, this morning, I received a briefing regarding, the number of convictions that we have secured as at yesterday. And the number is 1,576. That is an unprecedented number of convictions.
Sorry, convictions mean that they're going to jail. Do we have space to accommodate these people?
Yes, of course.
Oh, we do?
Yes.
I always thought we didn't have it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you mentioned about this. Out of this, we are changing the narratives here, because I also want to report that 122 were discharged and acquitted. Now, compare that, with the success that we have recorded in terms of convictions, and that is, it shows that we have lost, if I want to use that word loss, I don't want to use it, but they were discharged, less than 10%. Right. So that means for the number of convictions, if you compare, as a way of measurement, you will see that, yes, 90% of the time we are successful in court.
All right, so let me ask you this. What are some of your frustrations as an EFCC chairman? Because this is Nigeria. There's always a Nigerian factor. There are big men, there are big connections, long legs. And what are some of your frustrations as a chairman? What have you seen that's impeded your success so far?
Attitude of Nigerians.
Okay.
At what
Generally,
level? Up, low?
Everywhere. You know, there's problem everywhere, you know, Marayo. Let me tell you. A tomato seller will want to put in the bad ones, you know, beneath the basket. And then the good ones on top. What is she doing? She's trying to cheat.
Corruption.
Because that is where she has the opportunity to do that.
At every level.
A commissioner in a state, a governor of a state, a minister, that is where he has the opportunity. And that is why he is doing what he has to do. Have you ever been to the airport and you want to ease yourself and you enter the toilet and you see the way the boys are behaving to you and all of that? They are trying to do as if they want to do you a favor by giving you tissue or by giving you, you know, I don't know how they do that. They will understand that, you know, I'm a Muslim somehow, and then everybody would be rushing to go and get me a kettle so that I will ease myself with it and all of that, you know, trying to find a way of getting something out of you and all of that. So it's the general attitude of Nigerians, you know, and if you spread the map, you know, Marayo, you will tend to agree with me that this country is a very religious country. You know, there is no country in this world that, you know, that is as religious as this country. The number of churches we have, the number of mosques we have, the way we are passionate about that. That's supposed to reflect in our character as Nigerians, to do the right thing always. You understand? To change our attitude and ensure that, you know, in every facet of our life, wherever you find yourself, you are doing the right thing. This country is rich enough, is big enough, is, you know, to take care of itself. I think that is the biggest frustration. Wherever you thought you are going to see some of these things manifesting. But we are optimistic, you know, things are changing in this country. Opportunities are being blocked to do some of these things, and people are talking. On our part, we are trying to engage religious bodies to ensure that, you know, they preach some of these problems of anti-corruption to the extent that people will realize that, look, we have that collective responsibility to ensure that the right thing is done always for the betterment of everybody.
Yeah. So we, you know, I commend the EFCC for the numbers that you just mentioned, you know. But you know, Nigerians now, we say that's small fry. Let's talk about the big time ones.
Big fish.
Exactly. There are two right now, you know, out there. So we have the MENA, when Nigerians are saying, okay, EFCC did this job, we got him to be prosecuted, but how does EFCC feel about that sentence? Nigerians say that it's not commensurate to what he's done. And also the unending case of Desiani and all the things that they keep selling and reselling. What's happening with that?
Have you sold the jury also?
Well, let me start with the first.
Let me also add,
yes,
they are also accused EFCC of bungling some of their court cases. Our lawyers not good enough? Are the prosecuting lawyers, are they better equipped and better prepared than EFCC lawyers?
Maria, we have asked 10 questions in one. So you have to help me to break them so that I will answer them. Well, let me start by telling you, you know, that it is all within our mandate to investigate small fries, as you call them, as well as the big fries. But the length of time in which you need to conclude an investigation of an alleged advance fee fraudster is different from the length of time that you require to investigate the big fish that you talk about. Because you are talking about complex money laundering type of cases, you know, that requires you to travel beyond the shores of this country to engage, you know, with several other law enforcement agencies across the shores of this country. So you tend to see that the turnover of cases involving some of these small fries, let me use your word, you know, is very high. It's part of our mandate to investigate, to, you know, enforce Advance Fee Fraud and Other Related Offences Act, the cybercrime law, and all of that. So, but I want to assure you that the big cases you are talking about, we are working tirelessly on them. And I know that, God willing, before the end of this year, you know, we are going to commence prosecution of a lot of some of these big fries we talk about. You know, other former governors or former ministers, or whatever you are going to see.
I'll come to BC, but I want to ask about this big fry a bit, because someone like a man now, he's been convicted. He's going to 8 years, right? I think it's 8 years.
8 years he got.
Help us describe the cell he's going to. Is it a nice living room, house, pretty, or is it like the movies where it's one color 6 by 2 feet, you know, like a regular cell? They're dirty, and he's going to be eating from
hard labor.
Give us let Nigerians have a picture of where Mina is going.
Let me start by answering what Mariam have asked, you know, in relation to the subject. The subject has been convicted, you know, he has been convicted. We are very happy with the judgment. He's going to serve 8 years, you know, cumulatively it's about 60 years. You know, restitution is made to the government, of course, and all of that. So we still have another case against him, and of course the civil for future proceedings, you know, taking place. In relation to the question asked by Mariam regarding that, I think you need to invite the CG of Correctional Services to answer that. Ours is to go to the court, present our case, you know, and then at the end of the day, you know, the judge will make pronouncement, and then of course we hand over to the people that are supposed to put him in custody. You have asked about it. Let me just, the government have not sold a single, you know,
that brand that is
property recovered, you know, etc., etc. So we are working towards that.
Did you touch that brand? Did you touch it? Did you touch it? Did you touch that brand? Did you see it? Or you're just hearing about it, or did you the jewelry? I mean, did you feel it with your hands to know that it's diamonds, or it's just telling you it's diamonds? I want to know, because
on the lighter notes.
On the lighter
please,
notes.
You know, you have accused us several times of media trial, but I think it's good to be fair to everybody at all times. Justice is a two-way thing. There was nothing like diamond bra. It's just the creation of
I saw a picture.
Social media.
What?
I can tell you that for free because I'm the lead investigator on that, so I can tell you that. Don't
Nigeria
be
will not kill me.
Front page.
Surprise on that and all of that.
Wow.
I'm not aware of it. And if there is something like that, I should know because I led the search and all of that. So.
Thank you for clarifying.
This is serious.
We the people.
And that is one of the things that I mentioned to you that I think the biggest problem that we have is our attitude. And all of that. We need to change for better.
Yeah, so I watch a lot of American films, permits me, and a bit worried about the modus operandi of some people who have been invited to the EFCC. So what we see in most of these Hollywood movies is the fact that they would profile, they would investigate before they finally invite you and question you and, you know, arrest you if there is a need for it. Yeah. But we hear a lot of young Nigerians come out to say, I was invited, I was questioned, I was detained for a few days, and then they released me without telling me what I have done. There's no case against me, and then they take my personal effects. So can you help us clear on your modus operandi, how exactly you investigate and, you know?
It's not true. It's not true. Look, there are instances whereby somebody is arrested, for instance, on his way to, let's say, Dubai, carrying some hard currencies that he has not declared. So he's already arrested based on the fact that he has not declared those things. And then, of course, he's being handed over to the EFCC for further investigation. So is there any time to say, no, we're not going to arrest you? We want to go and profile you first and then come back and arrest you? No.
No, that's a different case.
So that's a different case. There are instances whereby we have an intel to say that, no, look, this place or this building, you know, is warehousing, you know, suspected advanced fee fraudsters. You understand? And, of course, you know, you have to act. You understand? But, of course, there are some other cases where we go on with our investigation for 1 year, for 2 years, for 3 years without any invitation. People can be mischievous, you know, to say all sorts of things. But what you said regarding the movies, they are movies, they are fictions, you know, and all of that.
All right, let me jump in here.
It's not in every instance that you need to provide this, you need to do this, you need to do that. You know, at times, of course, during the course of your investigation, you reach, you know, a point where you need to invite that person to come and answer and shed more light. Because, of course, you know, even if you charge him to court, he is innocent until proven guilty. Right. So he can be asked to come, you know, a few questions will be asked. How can you invite somebody without telling him what he has done or why you are inviting him? Exactly. Come on.
We see that
you know, but at least...
so, sir, let me quickly throw in 2 quick questions. You've been in EFCC almost like the inception. Like, they started in 2003, you joined 2004, and you've been blessed to be at the head. We know that in every agency, there's the Nigerian element of corruption. Since your appointment as the chairman of EFCC, have you prosecuted any within the EFCC? Has anybody been fired for misconduct on investigation or found corrupt within the EFCC? Do you have any statistics of such? Number one. Number two is there is an incessant, in recent times, back-to-back, breaking news of investors going bad, investments going bad, and would like to find out from you, what is the process? How can we involve EFCC for those watching who's invested money and found out that is a Ponzi scheme or something? How do they resolve it? So those are the 2 questions.
Yes, EFCC is among the few government agencies that have a full-fledged Department of Internal Affairs. It's like the police of the EFCC. The department was established in 2013. It has a director, you know, they have their own staff, you know, etc., etc. And the department is well equipped to do all of that. You know, they have a file on me, they have a file on anybody in the EFCC, and they are looking at us. I also want to let you know that that department, you know, is also licensed. We have the equipment for polygraph. You know, testing capability. We have it there, you know, where scientifically somebody can be asked on things. And for the first time in the history of court processes in Africa, you know, polygraph test was tendered in court and it was admitted. You understand? So even if we don't have, you know, clear, you know, evidence and all of that, some of these things can help, you know, to enable us have an indication of whether somebody is lying also. I want to tell you that, look, with deep heart, I have had cause to approve dismissal of several officers since when I resumed office. Because of instances of that, of course, you know, human beings are always human beings. You will have some bad elements from within the system. And we are looking, you know, towards, you know, ensuring that we act, you know, the way we're supposed to act, the way we're acting on others, and also on us as well. So if you have anything, you know, against anybody, write to us, and we'll ensure that it is being investigated to the latter. This issue of investment scam that you mentioned, Tope, is something that we have observed. We are working, you know, on that. In fact, as at the last briefing, when we aggregate all the complaints involving investment scam, as well as employment scam, you understand, Nigerians have complained to us to have lost over 200 billion naira in complaint. It's a huge problem. Ponzi scheme that is going on left, right, center, and Nigerians have to be wary about anybody that is promising you, you know, some, you know, kind of interest. How can you invest 500,000 and somebody is promising you 50,000 naira every month? And then at the end of that, you collect your 500. You collect your 500 back. What is he doing? What is he into? Is he investing in stock exchange? Is he into, what is he into? You understand? Why is it that he's the only person in among the 250 million Nigerians that has that idea, you know, to come up with, you know, kind of investment that is bringing in this return? You know, what they are doing is simply what it is, you know, a pyramid scheme. You know, take from this, give this, take from the new investors.
Well, how does it EFCC help those that have gotten trapped?
We have been working, we are still working tirelessly, you know, on all of that, in all the commands. You know, it's subject of our discussion, I think, even at the last meeting with all the commanders across the zonal offices. We are working. So anybody that has a complaint, please let him come forward with it. And
do they recover the money?
Yes, we have. Well, in some instances we do. In others, you know, these people are just...
they don't have the money to pay.
They don't have the money because they are taking your money and they are giving it to another person. So it is very, very difficult for us to recover 100% of such funds.
One of my concerns is that if we are truly ready to fight corruption, we'll take your job very seriously, because I think you don't have enough operators. You have less than 4,000 operators across the country. If corruption, if we see if it's like the bedrock of one of our issues, we should be able to go out there and launch this huge recruitment plan where we have, in 5 human beings, one is a EFCC operator. No, we're trying to beat corruption, because the tomato seller is there, the bus driver is there, the banker is there, the politician is there. There are different levels.
No, Marayo. We are not. We are optimistic that things will change for better. There are things to consider. You have the prevention aspect. You have you know, the enforcement aspect and the asset recovery aspect. In the EFCC, some weeks ago, we launched our strategic plan, and we have the 4 strategic objectives are in there, you know, for everybody to see. One of the objectives there is the increased public engagement in the fight against corruption. Okay. You know, me being here is part of it. You understand? We want Nigerians to be on board. You know, we want Nigerians to take ownership of this wherever they are. So we don't have to police everybody. You know, we are embracing technology. One of the objectives that we have there is to have intelligence-driven investigation, prevention, and asset recovery. You know, that is the way to go. You have to embrace technology to be able to monitor this, to be able to, ensure that you are checkmating this thing without necessarily having humans, you know, doing all of that. One of our strategic objectives, you know, is to have and improve, you know, coordination and, you know, collaboration with relevant stakeholders. You have other stakeholders that are out there. We have other law enforcement agencies. So you need not to have an EFCC that has 200,000 or 300,000 so that, no. We need to engage. We need to learn to trust our leaders. And then, of course, we are working towards seeing that system and processes, you know, are improved, you know, for the prevention of this crime. So it's not about the number. We are comfortable about the number, and, you know, we will, of course,
let me get one final question for you before we run out of time. Go ahead,
my one is the whistleblower policy and the whistleblowers' safety, you know, going forward. How far and how well has that worked for the EFCC? Are we getting a lot of people who are willingly coming forward to give information? And secondly, I think you should help me answer the question about the lawyers, the caliber of lawyers the EFCC has.
Let me answer the last one. We have wonderful set of lawyers, you know, that are doing wonders, and that is why you can see that they have won 90 out of 100, or more than 90 out of 100. Look, there is no institution of government that have contributed to the development of law in the last 10 years than the EFCC. Go and check the records. We are busier than any government agencies in court. You understand? I believe we have the second biggest law chamber in this country, maybe behind that of the Attorney General of the Federation. So the lawyers are good. The lawyers are trying their best. We are learning every day. You understand? We have a very good, cordial working relationship with the judiciary. The judiciary have been helpful, you know, from the CJN to the President of the Court of Appeal to the various CJs across, you know, to the judges. And it's for everybody to do and to work together to ensure that, you know, we have sanity in this country. Your second question is on what, Mariam?
Whistleblower.
Whistleblower. I want to appeal to Nigerians that they should all go ahead and download our Eagle Eye. We recently launched an app where you can download, and with ease you will be able to report any economic and financial crime. I want to assure Nigerians that once you do that, we will be able to look at it and deal with it based on its own merit. Nigerians are assisting us with that. You know, they are sending a lot of complaints, and we are working with that. And one of the recent complaints we received through the app led us to a recovery of a very big, real estate in Lagos here, valued at over 400 million.
Wow.
So please key in is about our own public engagement to ensure that, Nigerians are involved. So report this thing. If you didn't say something, the EFCC will not do something. But if you say something, we will surely do something, and the country will be better for it.
Thank you very much. I think on that note, we have to wrap up. Thank you very much. We'll be speaking with the chairman of the EFCC, Mr. Bawa. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you very much for having me. Only that the studio is full of, there's no gender balance here.
That's all we can take on the show. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.
We did not ask you that.